Hey guys, David here. Yeah, this show, it's still on. ABC, I swear to God, if you do this shit one more time, you're ABC, not AMC. Don't string us along just because you happen to stumble upon a cliffhanger at the end of one of your episodes. Don't be putting some David Blaine shit, Dancing with the Stars. I get the election, fine, whatever. But 3 weeks? Where it wasn't even the mid-season finale? Whatever. Whatever. We finally return with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. in this brand new episode that was actually pretty damn good. Spoilers, really enjoyed it, called Deals with Our Devils. And thankfully, it picked up right where the last one left off, and it pretty much confirmed an awful lot of things that we were speculating after leaving us hanging with that cliffhanger. Fitz, Coulson, and Robbie disappear in that blast within that compound, while May, Mac, Daisy, and even Robbie's little brother are wondering where the hell did these guys go, and they tease the possibility of them having been killed in this blast because they have to consider all options. And I love that the opening was just that. It was all those characters outside of those three that disappeared, considering what had just happened. And then about 10 or 15 minutes in, we do this thing that I saw recently in a French film in my film school. We saw a French film where they go about a third of the way through into the movie, and certain events take place from one character's point of view. And we just see that point of view all the way up until a third to halfway, midway through the movie, until all of a sudden it does this like rewind thing, and then we see the exact same events, only this time we see it from a different angle, from a different perspective, from a different character. And this episode does the exact same mechanic, and I gotta be honest, I'm a sucker for movies that do this thing where they tamper through time in terms of editing and storytelling, that it kind of pieces clues together as you, the viewer, watches these events unfold, and you kind of put that puzzle together in your head. And I love it when movies and TV shows do that kind of thing. So I love that. So this episode kind of wrote me in with that mechanic when it came to the way that this episode told its story, where the entire episode is only like 20 minutes, maybe 25 minutes, but it's told from two different perspectives. So we rewind a couple times, seeing it not only from May, Mac, and Simmons, well, not so much Simmons, but Mac, Daisy, and May's point of view, where they're trying to figure out how to bring Coulson and Robbie and Fitz back. Well, on the other end, through sepia tone, through that Instagram filter, we see Fitz, Coulson, and Robbie trying to figure out what happened to them. What was interesting about seeing these two things unfold is that we see little sprinkles of things yet to come. We see Mace doing some iffy shit when it came to him sending Simmons to an undisclosed location. Well, I'll talk about in a second. That unfortunately I didn't talk about in the last week, in the last episode 3 weeks ago. But some other interesting, cool little character stuff happened too. Fitz and Coulson confronting each other about Coulson stepping down, whereas Fitz is very scared about what happened with Simmons after he learns what Mace has done. That was very cool and very tense, but a nice little character moment for the two of them. And then we got Robbie, who has a supernatural entity in him, so things are gonna clash there, and eventually that demon does in fact come out and possesses Mac, which was very cool and interesting. It also offers a little character beat of its own with Mac. We see him holding something like a photo, I imagine it has a name or a word, hope, and then a date. I imagine it's a daughter, maybe a wife, maybe a loved one of some kind. And that is what the writer was feeding off, and I love that this time it possessed somebody else. It wasn't just Robbie, it was another S.H.I.E.L.D. member. And Robbie confronting, not Mac, but the demon was very, very cool. And I don't know, it was just something very, very nerdy, but very cool to see. And then on the flip side, you got May and I guess subsequently Coulson learning that Ada's an android because she's the only one that can read the book. But how is that going to affect the rest of the show, considering that now Ada looks like maybe she absorbed a little bit too much intelligence, so now they look like they might make her a threat, which I kind of hope they don't. I really hope that they do something a little bit smarter and less generic than that, because with that little stinger there at the end, I'm not feeling that. I was hoping that Ada would be much more of an ally, like she showed herself to be here at the end of the episode, putting things together. But it looks like, because of the way the music and the way that stinger was kind of orchestrated, we might be looking at Ada being a potential villain. Hopefully they don't. So the way the episode was written was very cool, because on its own, it was mostly a mission type of episode where you got this event type thing where characters are trying to rescue each other, and that was pretty much the end goal, but sprinkled throughout were character beats for almost everybody. And it was a very, very good and well written episode, even though it knew not to tackle too much. Eli Morrow, the uncle, who I still not a huge fan of his villainous turn, but if you're gonna make him a villain, he shows a little bit of promise there where he makes those spikes come out of those guards and they just die instantly. That was actually some pretty dark shit right there. But they were smart to kind of get Morrow out of the way in this episode. Sure, he's out there on the loose, but let's focus on getting our heroes reunited once more. Coulson and Fitz get reunited with the team, and then you got Robbie appearing there at the end, specifically to Mac, and it looks like they're all, being that they're both have at one point been possessed by the writer, it looks like the writer's gonna unify them for, like Robbie said, one last score. And before I forget, we finally learned where Simmons went off to. I didn't point that out in the last review, but Simmons was sent to the senator's brother, who, and by the way, it was her brother, Senator's brother, to figure out if he's gonna come out of that caterpillar shell after him going through that Terrigenesis thing. That was actually pretty interesting because I'm sure that's the favor that Mace promised the Senator for their little allegiance there, or little agreement. We didn't really see a whole lot of that happen except that the dude survived, but then right before we got any more details and Simmons herself got any more information, we were whisked away, and fortunately Simmons and Fitz are reunited, but not before Fitz did in fact confront Mace. So I wonder if Mace is gonna hold that into some kind of ominous regard. We'll have to wait and see. And before I wrap up, let's go ahead and address the marvelous elephant in the room, and that is of course the Doctor Strange references in this episode. It's funny, again, going back to how clever the writing was, they never explicitly addressed that this is tied into Doctor Strange, but they laid enough subtle and sometimes visual details to kind of hint at the fact that yeah, this is tied into Doctor Strange. More likely than not, Coulson, Fitz, and Robbie found themselves in the astral realm. They just never called it that because nobody told them that that's what it's called. But trust me, it's the astral realm. Especially when Coulson was being sucked into what I believe is like the nether or like the darkness or whatever. That shit had the exact same prism, shattered glass type of look that we saw in the Doctor Strange movie. And if that wasn't enough, when Ada finally opens the portal there at the end, what did that look like? The sparks coming out of the side, just like the portals that Strange and other sorcerers in the movie make themselves whenever they travel from from location to location, or even from reality to another. It's the exact same type of visual aesthetic. So I geeked out. As soon as I popped out, I was like, oh my god, it's Doctor Strange. So a really good, well-written episode filled with an awful lot of character, an awful lot of tension, an awful lot of high stakes, and some cool Easter eggs tied into Doctor Strange to boot. I would usually get mad when TV networks do this kind of thing when they string us along and that gap did not need to be necessary. But fortunately I can say that the episode was a very well-deserving payoff. So I think this is my first one for the season. I will be giving The Deals with Our Devils a very low 9 out of 10. So far my favorite episode of the season because of all things it was doing right. I can barely think of anything that I didn't like so much in the episode. I mean, I might end up thinking something after the review, but for now, definitely one of the biggest highlights of the seasons thus far. Please let me know in the comments below what you guys thought of this week's episode of Doctor Strange. What did you guys think of the direction they're taking with Ghost Rider, his tie-in with Mac, this whole thing with the Terrigenesis, but more importantly, that book. Is that going to return and have a much more pivotal role considering Morrow's still out there? And of course, those nifty Doctor Strange Easter eggs, what do you guys think of them? Do you think they were too much or very subtle and very clever? Please post your comments down below. Like the video, share the video with all your Marvelites. Subscribe for more coming very, very soon. And I thank you guys for watching. Take care.